poppers! I hope you're ready for the tale of dolls so popular, people brawled in stores all across the United States. And that's no exaggeration because today, we're going behind the Cabbage Patch Kids phenomena. Throughout history, we humans have had a weird love-hate relationship with dolls. Perhaps it's because of their faces that mimic life yet still possess an uncanny appearance, or it's the blank, distant look in their eyes. Whatever it is, some say the fear is ludicrous, but that hasn't stopped dolls from inspiring some of the creepiest and scariest stories. I mean, I know I wouldn't want to be trapped in a room full of them. I mean, just look at Exhibit A. But despite the creep factor, many people love dolls, and in fact, they are always waiting for a new fad so they can collect like crazy. And that is why we are visiting with one Xavier Roberts. Not much is known about Xavier Roberts, but most sources agree that he was born in Cleveland, Georgia on October 31st, 1955. And from all accounts, he had a rather normal upbringing. And aside from having 5 siblings, nothing of note is written about his childhood. However, it is mentioned that Xavier's father died in a car accident when he was only 5 years old. So with his mother becoming sole provider for the family, Xavier soon developed into a very attentive student. He graduated from White County High School before attending Truett McConnell Junior College, where it is claimed that he was an award-winning art student. It was around this time that Xavier said his love of quilting re-emerged. A talent, he said, was encouraged by his mother. And it was this skill that led him to an idea he dubbed Little People. Basically, they were adoptable dolls that the consumer paid an adoption fee to have. And of course, no adoption is complete without a certificate. So each Little People came with one. Please keep this tidbit in mind for later. Anyway, Xavier filed for a patent in 1978, and he was so worried about being ripped off, he branded his dolls by adding his signature to their bums. Okay. And that, poppers, is the beginning of the Cabbage Patch Kids. Unlike most entrepreneurs, Xavier already owned a company called Original Appalachian Artworks. So in order to take things to the next level, he licensed the dolls to Coleco Industries in 1982. The original worldwide agreement was negotiated by Roger L. Schlafer, doing business as Schlafer, Nance and Company, SNNC. This is when he finally stopped using the branding of Little People and went with Cabbage Patch Kids. As for the design, it changed only slightly, with the heads being made of vinyl and the bodies remaining fabric. For the first 2 years, production of the dolls were strictly done in Hong Kong, but in 1982 to 1989, the Cabbage Patch Kids would change manufacturing to Amsterdam, New York. However, the real production was done in China despite this so-called switch. But I digress, because despite all these strategic moves, the great consumer craze wouldn't occur until 1983. And yes, it was the fall and winter of 1983 that took consumer fights to a whole new level. Because when the Cabbage Patch Kids hit the market, demand was insane. How insane, you ask? Well, one only has to look at archived news articles and video clips to see how bad things got. One could say that high demand, low inventory, coupled with the most self-absorbed holiday in the world, resulted in wholesale stupidity. But don't take my word for it, just take a look for yourself. All for a toy. So as you can see, whether intentional or just plain luck, there was pandemonium. And you know what's even crazier? People showed up to stores by the thousands on any given day. So if there are only a few dolls in inventory, how does one satisfy the mob? Well, you don't. This meant most store aisles looked like a WWE event, with customers pushing, shoving, punching, and intentionally trampling each other. There were even reports of people roaming store parking lots with bats in hand. Well, I mean, basically they were going full Negan. But what made this behavior even more insane is that the Cabbage Patch Kids were not cheap. Because at $30 a pop in 1983, that would equal to $81.08 today. Seriously, my parents would never love me that much. They would just buy the knockoff and call it a day. At any rate, despite the steep $30 price tag, Cabbage Patch Kids flew off the shelves. However, many of those consumers are also reselling them at an insane markup. So with Coleco seeing nothing but dollar signs, the accessories started rolling out, and I mean everything. Cereal, lamps, bedding sets, night lights, wallets, gift wrapping paper, puzzles, costumes, juice cups, board games, various radios, lunch boxes, cartoons, dishware, video games, and much, much more. Basically, Coleco and Xavier Roberts were practically printing money. So between 1983 and 1984, the Cabbage Patch Kids brand was so profitable, it seemed like the party would never end. And they had every reason to be on cloud nine, because by the time 1985 rolled around, the brand had pulled in over 600 million in sales, which is completely mind-blowing because that would equal to $1.5 billion today. That's some serious cash flow for any product. So we can't really blame Coleco and Xavier for popping the champagne and riding the pop culture wave. But as Geoffrey Chaucer famously said, all good things must come to an end. So by the time 1986 came around, sales tanked to under 250 million, a loss of 41.75%, only in a year. Of course, it wasn't chump change by any means. However, it wasn't close to what they experienced in the height of the Cabbage Patch Kids madness. Thus, Coleco tried to bring back that excitement with things like talking and kazoo playing versions of the doll, but sadly, it did little to win back the consumer. With the waning popularity of Cabbage Patch Kids and Coleco's other failing toy lines, the rights were sold back to Original Appalachian Artworks. And not very long after this transaction, Coleco went bankrupt, yet Xavier wasn't really discouraged. So after some negotiating, Hasbro started making and marketing the dolls to younger children. But not even a toy giant like them could recapture the craze that was the Cabbage Patch Kids phenomenon. So what do you do when the market says they've had enough of your product? Well, you call Mattel, that's what. And with their history of successes, Xavier felt that he was on his way to a comeback. And he couldn't have been more wrong. Because when Mattel tried to garner interest by making miniature dolls in 1994, this also went nowhere. Still, Xavier wasn't ready to give up. So in 2003, he licensed the Cabbage Patch Kids to Toys R Us. And like Mattel, they too had novel ideas like supersized dolls and so on. But when that did little to sway interest, the license went to Wicked Cool Toys before landing at Play Along Toys, the company that was later acquired by Jakks Pacific in 2011. As for Xavier, he now lives a quiet life in his hometown of Cleveland, Georgia, and he has a net worth of $50 million. And if you're so inclined, you can visit the Babyland General Hospital to purchase and repair your very own doll. But you don't have to fly to Georgia to get your hands on a Cabbage Patch Kid, because you can also find them at the official website, Kohl's, Target, Amazon, and other retailers. So, I'm sure you all know that business is a very cutthroat enterprise, and sometimes even friends can undermine friends when money is on the line, which is why we shouldn't be surprised that even toy makers can be less than honorable. Because the truth of the matter is, despite Xavier Roberts making history, there will always be an asterisk by his name. And this is due to his real story, including a woman by the name of Martha Nelson Thomas. And not only do many point to her as the original Cabbage Patch Kids creator, she began making them way before Xavier in the 1970s. Hailing from Kentucky, Martha was a talented artist who sold her creations directly to the consumer. And the main thing that made her dolls so unique were their soft fabric bodies, because according to her, plastic and porcelain were not conducive for playing. And Martha really wanted kids to interact and have fun with her creations. She also believed this so strongly, each and every one of her doll babies came with a special outfit and accessory to make them unique. And to put a bow on the entire experience, whenever one was sold, the customer received adoption certificates. Sounds very familiar, right? Anyway, Martha started making waves through word of mouth. So while she was humbly selling her dolls, she and Xavier crossed paths. And according to numerous sources, he bought a few of her doll babies in 1976. However, he not only resold them in his stores in Georgia, he sold them at a huge markup. So naturally, when the news reached Martha, she was less than pleased. In fact, the introverted artist was so upset she confronted Xavier Roberts and took back the doll babies he had on hand, which you would think would cause him to be somewhat apologetic. But instead of seeing things from Martha's point of view, Xavier basically said, and I quote, "If I can't sell your dolls, I'll sell some just like them." Yikes. At any rate, he kept his so-called promise, because not long after that interaction, Xavier got a Hong Kong manufacturer to start rolling out cheap versions of the doll baby. And over time, his newly dubbed little people became what we know today as Cabbage Patch Kids. As the years passed, Xavier was dogged with rumors that he stole the idea. So eventually, he fessed up, but not fully, because he claimed that he was only influenced by Martha Nelson Thomas. Despite this explanation, many still consider him a complete and total ripoff artist. Which shouldn't surprise us, because eventually, Martha did sue Xavier Roberts, and after a great deal of legal wranglings, he settled out of court in 1985 for an undisclosed amount. But in spite of this legal victory, the saddest part of the entire saga is what Martha's husband, Tucker, said years later. According to him, she never wanted to be part of consumerism. Martha just wanted to make children happy and to make them feel like each doll was crafted specially for them. This is why she never wanted to be mass-produced by greedy corporations. Simply put, Martha Nelson Thomas was a great artist that never lost her integrity throughout her entire life. And though she passed away on May 26, 2013, at the age of 62, her creations have been making the rounds at art exhibits, including places like the High Museum of Art and the Kentucky Museum of Arts and Crafts. Now, let me give you poppers one last tidbit on Xavier Roberts, because apparently he sued Topps Chewing Gum Inc., the company that trolled him with Garbage Pail Kids. And that's pretty ironic considering his background. But don't worry, you'll hear how that entire case went on the next show, because we will be diving headfirst into those disgusting Garbage Pail Kids. Well, see you next time, poppers!